All right, that was This Time, A Minute for Love, right here on 97.3 FM with the Captain. And good morning, glad to have you here. And on live with me this morning, it's the one and only Peter Beckett. Yes, he's the guy who is from the lead singer from the group Player, and also from the Little River Band. Peter, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Oh, glad to have you on here this morning. And, of course, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, I know you were born over in Liverpool, England, in the place of the Beatles. Now, that has got to be a big influence for you.
Well, yeah, I was about 5 years younger than the Beatles, and my brother was the same age as them, and he always used to tell me, but he'd go see the Beatles. They'd do these lunchtime sessions for the office workers down in the cavern, which was a cellar in this warehouse district, and he'd go to these lunchtime sessions, and I was playing a little guitar at the time in the house, and he'd say, if I can ever get you down to see the Beatles, you got to come down with me. And as I got a little older, he knew one of the bouncers, and I was too young to go in there,
Right.
And I actually went to 3, but the first one, I just remember walking up this cobbled street with warehouses on each side, and the cobbled street was shaking under my feet because the Beatles were down under, and they were so loud. Probably now they wouldn't even be loud, but it was this, this small cellar, and
Right.
I walked down there, and the atmosphere and the whole thing just blew me away, and that was it for me. I knew what I wanted to do.
You were hooked at that time.
Big time.
Now, you came out at age 16, I understand, with the first song?
I think I was about 17 or something. We moved down to London. I left home at 16, and once I wanted to be a musician, that was it. I went down and slept in the parks on benches in London just to try to get things going,
Right.
And ended up taking my Liverpool band that I eventually ended up in, called The Thoughts. We all moved down to London, and we eventually evolved from the park benches to a one-room apartment where we're all sleeping on the floor, and trying to get work, basically. And we met our manager at the time, knew Shel Talmy, who was the famous producer who'd done The Who and everybody,
Cool.
And Ray Davies, he'd done he had a song called All Night Stand that Ray Davies had written, and they hadn't recorded yet, And we went in with the famous Shel Talmy, and he recorded it. We were very young, and they put it out as a single.
When you began the group Player, tell us how you met with J.C. Crawley, Ron Moss, all the people. Now, back in 1976, if I've got my facts correct, right?
Pretty 76, 77. It all happened very fast. Probably late 76, early 77. I was living in the Hollywood Hills, and just writing songs and tooling around, and I was invited to this party. It was quite a posh party up in the hills. Everybody was supposed to wear white, and they were. Robin Williams, a whole bunch of celebrities there, and I didn't get the note, so I'm just in jeans and a red T-shirt or something, and the only other person there that wasn't in white was this guy called, I met him, started talking to him because of this, and his name was JC, and he was a very interesting character. I found out he was a writer from Texas, and kind of an oddball guy. He looked a little like a young Jim Morrison, really good-looking guy. And we started yapping, and having a drink and stuff. And we decided to get together a few days later and try to bang something out, And so I went over to he had a little apartment up in the hills with a garage, the famous cockroach-infested garage. And we sat down, a couple of acoustics, and we banged out a handful of songs. And we had a different name then. It was Bandana or something. We had some different members in there, and we hawked them around. We'd go around with our acoustics and sit in people's offices. We got turned down a whole bunch of times, but we didn't lose the faith,
Yes.
And then we found a manager, Paul Palmer, and he brought in Ron Moss and John Friesen, bass player and drummer.
Yes.
And he said, these guys will work great with you two, So we started rehearsing, and then, we got more songs. Baby Come Back came into the mix, and Lambert and Potter became interested. They had a bunch of hits at the time with everybody,
Mm-hmm.
And they signed us to the Haven label, which was a small label. And once they heard Baby Come Back, they said, sure, let's go, And we didn't have a name. And I was like sitting up watching a Robin Hood movie or something one night late, and the cast came on at the end, where it says, instead of saying cast, it said the players, which it used to in those days. And I thought, the players, that's kind of interesting, And somebody then the next day, it might have been Ron Musk, can't remember, said, why don't we just call it Player? Because the Eagles aren't really called the Eagles, they're called Eagles.
Right.
And he said, why don't we just call it Player? And that was it.
And it took off right from there.
Yeah. We started doing, what would you call it, small shows for record industry people.
Yes.
And, we actually played one of them for Clive Davis in the Beverly Hilton Hotel. He was the only guy in the ballroom. He's just sitting there at the foot of the stage. And it was Ron, JC, myself, and John Friesen, just acoustic, and we played about 4 songs for him, including Baby Come Back. And he put his arm around us at the end and he said, you guys look great, you sound great, but I don't hear a hit. Oh. And then he took us into his bungalow and he started playing us all these things that he thought were hits,
Right.
And some of them did end up being hits, but, some of them didn't. So we were all dejected, and then Dennis ran with it and took it to Al Corey at RSO Records, and that was it.
That lightning struck at that time.
Yeah, and I have this thing about lightning in a bottle. I do feel very lucky, It's very hard to just even get a hit. It's like ridiculous, but to get a number one hit is lightning in a bottle, and I'm very grateful,
Right. Now, the hit Baby Come Back, what gave you the idea for the song?
Well, it was all around the same time. We had a handful of songs, JC and I, that we'd written, and we just sat down. I lived in the famous old, at this time, I lived in this famous old apartment building on Highland and Hollywood Boulevard. Real old-fashioned kind of place, It was a very interesting place, and JC used to love to come over, so we'd sit around and come up with ideas. And we just started strumming on the verse chords, and then we started singing a melody to the verse chords, and we didn't have a chorus. And I kept playing with it when he left overnight, and I thought this would work, And then we had everything but a lyric for the chorus.
Gotcha.
And then on our third sitting, we just started wailing on that and threw the bridge in. About 3-day effort, and we had it, and we knew it was good because everybody we played it to would just go, "Holy cow!" That sounds like a hit.
Spending all my nights, all my money, going out on the town, doing anything just to get you off of my mind. But when the morning comes, I'm right back where I started again. Trying to forget you was just a waste of time. Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see there was something in everything about you. Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me. I was wrong, and I just can't live without you. Wearing a mask of false bravado, trying to keep up a smile that hides a tear. But as the sun goes down, you get that empty feeling again. How I wish to God that you were here. Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see there was something in everything about you. Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me. I was wrong, and I just
Now, tell us a little bit as you moved on now, the Little River Band.
Well, now, we had the same manager, our manager Paul Palmer, who was with us all through the Player days, and then, Player broke up for a while, and I did a whole solo album. And my manager, Paul Palmer, managed Little River Band at the time, too, the original Little River Band,
yes,
with all the Australian guys in it. And Graham Goebel, who wrote most of the hits along with Glenn Shorrock, he had left, and they wanted to do a tour, initially of Australia. And they had to do a video. They had a new album out, which, funnily enough, Dennis Lambert also had produced this album called Get Lucky. And I had a song on there, I'd written a song for them. And so Graham didn't turn up to shoot the video here in L.A., so they asked me if I'd stand in and be in the video. And so I stood in, and then the next minute they said, do you want to come and do this tour of Australia with us? And I had been out of the live gigging thing for 10 years or something. I was just doing film and TV,
Right.
I had a really good run of movies and TV stuff, and I felt too old, which is funny because it's like 30 years ago,
Right.
I thought, no, the road is too hard for me, I'll just stay at home and write my songs in my studio, and then I thought, it's only 5 weeks or something, I'll see Australia. And 8 years later I was still in the band, touring the US every year and doing the whole thing,
Playing some great hits, yes.
Yeah, it was, it got that they work an awful lot, and they always have, and it was a little hard going. The first few years were incredible because we went to, New Zealand and all these exotic, Fiji, all these great places, and then we would do like a month in the U.S.
Right.
And then it started becoming just the U.S. and months on end of touring on a bus in the U.S. And that's when it got a little.
It got a little hectic.
Old,
Yes,
yeah.
I hear that. What about what we've heard about the yacht rock situation?
Well, I'd never heard of yacht rock up till a few years ago, and I got this phone call there's a band in Atlanta, and they're an amazing band called Yacht Rock Review. They're all young guys, music students, and a great band, and they have all these different things they do. They do a Beatles thing, they do a U2 act, they do a Michael Jackson thing.
Right.
But their main thing is they do this 70s review.
Oh.
And what they do is they're the band, they do all the hits from the 70s, and then they'll bring out 2 or 3 of the real artists from the 70s, like me, Gary Wright, a bunch of other people, Eddie Money we had
Gotcha.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And I started doing gigs with them, and coming out as a guest star with other people, and they had called it Yacht Rock because of a TV series. There was an internet TV series, and it was a parody on the 70s. They had Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins, and it was a comedy. They'd all be fighting and getting drunk. It was like these guys acting as them, and it was absolutely hilarious. If you've never seen it, you can probably get it online.
Okay.
It's called Yacht Rock. And so they ran with that. Jimmy Fallon made it popular because he used to show it on his show.
Right.
And so this thing was they kind of created it, and then we tried to put a major tour together with those guys, but they had too much work. So we took it to our manager at the time, Ron Moss and I took it to our manager, and he took it to a promoter in New York. They called it Sail Rock, and they put a major tour together with Christopher Cross, Gary Wright, Orleans, Robbie Dupree, a whole bunch of... This is about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And we did that tour, and then we didn't tour in 13, and then in just last year we did Rock the Yacht.
Yes.
With Stephen Bishop and Ambrosia and Little River Band, and it's great. Every song is a hit. We're getting big crowds, nice venues, and we're doing the sheds. And the great thing is you've got like 3 generations. You've got the grandparents, the parents, and the kids.
Right, right.
And it's amazing. And so that's how that came about. It's been going now for about 4 or 5 years, and we're doing it again.
That's one. And now there's a benefit concert that's coming up on March the 20th that I know you're involved in. It's called the Darcy Pena Cancer Fund.
Yeah, Darcy Pena. Yes, it's a young lady. It's the niece of Burley Drummond.
Yes,
the drummer from Ambrosia, and she's very ill. She's got cancer for the 3rd time,
right.
And she's a young lady, and she's having problems with insurance and stuff like that. So
yes.
Burley put this together, and it's Ambrosia. We've been doing a lot of work with Ambrosia, by the way. It's Ambrosia, player Stephen Bishop, and a secret guest.
I know Burley was.
You know who it is?
Well, yes, I do now.
Okay.
But Burley was on with us 2 weeks ago, and so he was talking to me about it live on the air. And I go, "Oh, come on, you got
who it is?"
Yeah, he did, but I'm not going to say it because we're going to have everybody on because we're actually worldwide because we broadcast on the internet. So we're going to keep that secret for now. But for people that want to get involved and see all of these great groups out there, this is going to be at Sunday, March the 20th, 8 p.m., 28912 Roadside Drive in Agora Hills in California. And
that's the Canyon Club.
That's the Canyon Club, correct. I was just going to say that. And that's going to be a great concert. And I'm not going to give out the special guest, so you're just going to have to go and see it. So, but definitely, it's going to be a great concert, great benefit concert. It goes to to help out in a great cause. And and you know what? We appreciate all of that. And what you guys do, what Ambrosia's doing, we appreciate all of that. So, but let's get on to a little bit about. I want to know what's up in the future for the group Player.
Well, we're having a bit of a shake-up right now. Because of these yacht rock things.
Yes.
We have our own band, and it's a really great band. But because Ron and I are doing mostly gigs with this yacht rock situation, where there's a house band or one of the bands will become the house band. Like on this last thing, it was Ambrosia was the house band, and everybody played with them.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing at the Canyon Club also. So we haven't really been able to supply enough work for our guys,
Right.
And everybody's got their own things going on, so we're kind of letting that, for a little bit at least, we're going to let that go, and we're just going to concentrate. Ron and I are going to go out and finish up the year, as Player doing the yacht rock gigs.
Gotcha.
Mainly with Ambrosia.
Now, is there any new songs or CDs down the line?
Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on. I've been in the studio. I've got about four new tracks, almost in the can, almost finished. I'm going to be using a lot of well-known musicians and friends, on the CD.
Uh-huh.
And Ron has his own band. Ron has a side band called Ron Moss and Friends. He's not on the soap show anymore. The Boys Are Beautiful.
Yes.
So he's got a lot of time on his hands. So he's actually doing small gigs around clubs around town and charity gigs with his band. And I have my own side band, a country band called the Limey Cowboys. I've got about 7 songs finished for that. So I'm going to be doing 2 things. And should the 2 eventually merge, then so be it.
Okay, that's interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
We'd love to. Now, tell me about the last album that you have out.
Well, basically, and truthfully, we were approached by Frontiers Records, who at the time was signing all the 70s and 80s acts. I mean, I think they had Journey at one stage of the game. And they were just signing all the heritage acts, is what we call them.
Yes.
Of which we are one, I guess. And they called us and they said, "Would you do an album?" And we didn't have a big time frame, and there wasn't a ton of money. It was all about getting an album done and getting it out in the world. So I set myself about it. I had half the songs already written, and I fixed them all up, remastered, fixed up my demos, and then I wrote a handful of new songs, and that was it. And it came out, it's sold. I didn't expect to get another #1 record from it, but it's nice to have an album out when you're touring.
Yes, it is.
Kind of keeps everything current, and it's really good. There's some really good songs on there. It sounds great. There's a nice little booklet with it, and Time for the Next. That was almost 3 years ago now, so
Right.
It's definitely time.
Time to get another one out.
Yeah, and all new songs. Not just things that were sitting around. This
Yes.
one is like from scratch.
Gotcha. What was one of your favorite songs on that album?
Well, I love the song, the title track, Too Many Reasons. It's a kind of a classic, hard rock ballad. It's, it could have been done by Whitesnake or somebody. It's got that feel to it, I like it a lot. It's got a deep purplish kind of feel about it,
Right.
But I love the first track called Man on Fire. And, Player was always, people don't really know, they put us in the total soft rock category because of Baby Come Back.
Right.
And This Time I'm In It For Love, and other singles we put out. But we toured. The first tour was with Gino Vanelli.
Yes.
Then we did Buzz Skaggs' Silk Degrees tour, playing only in arenas,
Yes.
And then RSO, because Clapton was on RSO, they put us out with Eric Clapton. We did the Slow Hand tour. We did like 4 weeks with Eric Clapton on the Slow Hand tour, and we had to beef up our game,
Right.
And we were doing another album, so we made the second album, Danger Zone, a lot harder, and we went out and did this. We had to do that to go out and do the Slow Hand tour. And after that, we did the Hard Dog and Butterfly tour, which, hearts are pretty heavy,
Right, yes.
At least compared to us. And so we kind of kept that going. So we became more of a rock band, and the soft rock stuff was a lot less in the mix than the rock. So Man on Fire for me is a real kick-ass rock and roll song, and I love it. And it starts the album off and kind of sets the pace,
You did a lot of you wrote songs for other artists, did you not? Like Janet Jackson, I understand, Olivia Newton-John, Temptation.
Kenny Rogers, Grateful Dead.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I can't even remember. I had about 10-year period there, 10, 12 years, where I was slamming. It's like I was getting, instead of me having to do the cattle call, movie guys were calling me and, saying, write a song for this scene,
Right.
And I had a slew of movies and covers by major artists. And kind of ironically, that was broken up by joining Little River Band.
Ah, gotcha.
By the time I did that 8 years, which I really enjoyed, playing live again. But I came back to town, and half the people my contacts had all changed, so I kind of had to start all over again with that.
Right. Huh. That's fantastic. Now, what was the movies that you actually wrote the song for? One of them, I can't remember it right off the bat.
See, you should have given me a heads up because I'm getting old and I can't remember myself half the time. But I had 3 songs in Terminator 3.
That's it. Terminator 3.
League. Olivia Newton-John movie with Twist of Fate. I had a song called Twist of Fate.
Yes.
With Olivia, that was in a movie she did with Travolta.
Right, correct.
That actually was number 3. It was in the top 5,
Yes.
And that was actually, and I was writing with Steve Kipner, who's written a slew of hits for Chicago and Olivia and stuff. So, I was getting a bunch of really good covers. A whole bunch of, we had about 15 major movies. Major League was another one.
Uh-huh.
And truthfully, I've forgotten half the things. I'd have to look at my own bio to tell you.
I hear you. You've been a busy guy.
Live now, it's gone back to where you used to go and do gigs live in order to sell CDs. Now you practically give CDs away.
Yes.
To get people to come into the theater. It's totally changed.
It is. I mean, and now with we don't want to get into it too much, but with pirating that's going on and people are able to get the songs ahead of time on the internet, it's got to be very difficult, especially for the promoters and the people who are involved in the music business, doing the album CD work. It's very difficult to try to make any money that way now. It's really
and the download fee is so minimal.
Yes.
Like people used to buy albums and singles. Now, it's 10 cents or something.
Yes, crazy. It's ridiculous. It certainly is.
So that's why everybody's out playing live again.
Yes, I hear you.
Just again, we are doing the Yacht Rock thing, and we're actually doing it this year with the guys from Atlanta, the Yacht Rock Review.
Yes.
And they're going to be the house band, and it's, I believe this time around, it's Ambrosia, Player, Robbie Dupree, Matthew Wilder. 10 things so far, and they're adding things every week, so it's going to be great fun.
Do you think you'll be they'll be coming down in the Florida area?
Usually does. We just did Pompano Beach about 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
With the end, it was the tag end of the one we did with Little River Band and Ambrosia. We usually do a few things in Florida, so yeah, I would think so. I mean, in fact, if I can, I'll give you a heads up.
Yes, definitely.
And just keep an eye out, because it'll be on the internet, and it'll be obviously if it's in your area, you'll hear of it.
It was great talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me. All right, mate. Thank you very much.
Okay, you have yourself a great day.
All right, take care, mate.
Okay.
Hey, this is Peter Beckett from Player. You're listening to Capt Kirk on 97.3 FM, The Surf.
Baby, come back.